Well, next this morning, dog owners are more scared to walk their pets than they were last year after a surge in dog napping during the pandemic. The charity Dog Lost has found a 178% increase in dog napping incidents over the last year. The Association of Police and Crime Commissioners found the majority of the more than 12,000 people surveyed thought dog theft was a very serious problem, and that 83% of those who walk their dog were now more fearful of doing so at night. Let's get the thoughts of Sussex Police and Crime Commissioner Katy Bourne, who commissioned the survey, which is now being reviewed by the Home Office this morning. Thank you for your time this Monday morning. So tell us about some of the figures involved here.
Well, it's quite surprising, actually. First of all, I'm hugely grateful to the almost 125,000 people that responded. But what it's telling us is that the public see this as a real threat to their animals. They're very upset that their dog is classified as property if it gets stolen, because they see the dog, quite rightly, as a member of the family. And more than that, I suppose the biggest thing for me was the fact that nearly 80% of those that responded were frightened of walking their dog during the daytime, not just at night, but during the daytime as well.
And things have got worse during the pandemic in the course of the last year.
They certainly have. I mean, we've seen an increase in this crime anyway in recent years. But during the pandemic, people taking to social media far more, we've seen this really take off. And interestingly, the police are telling us one thing, that actually this is quite a low crime rate, but the public and those that responded, I mean, 27,000 of those that responded to this survey said that they had had a dog stolen or they knew somebody that had had a dog stolen. And yet the police numbers are much, much less than that. So there's clearly something going on here.
So therefore, are the police taking this seriously enough?
Well, and that's a really great question. I think the problem we've got is it's very difficult for police forces to quantify just how extensive this problem is, because a dog is classified as property, it could be stolen during a robbery, during a theft, and that's what it gets classified as. So it's quite hard for police forces to interrogate their systems and pull out the right data. So what I'd like to see is for a dog theft to actually be classified separately as it is. And then we'd have a much better understanding nationwide of just how extensive this crime is.
And people who are guilty of dog napping, what happens to them? Get what, a fine or a suspended prison sentence?
The actual sentencing for this is quite strong. I mean, it's up to 7 years in prison. The reality, though, is that about 1% of all these crimes ever make it to conviction. And when they do, the perpetrator tends to get away with a fine or maybe a suspended sentence. But it is so low that really there is very little deterrent at the moment for these thieves. And people are very upset about this. 97% of all those that responded said they want this to be taken seriously and they want their dog to be classified not as property, but as a separate classification and recognised as a member of the family.
And the anguish this puts on the owners must be really hard to bear.
Oh my goodness, yes. I mean, if they have their dog stolen, it's not like losing your bike or losing your watch. People go through a whole grieving process. The loss, the mourning, the whole thing. It has physiological and psychological impacts on whole families. So we cannot underestimate the impact that this has on victims. And I think classifying a dog as property genuinely does put it in that category where it almost sends out a message that says we don't care. And I think in this country, we're a nation of dog lovers. It's the 21st century. We need things to change.
We know Nottinghamshire Police have got a chief or an inspector that is dedicated specifically to dog theft. Do you think that could happen around other forces?
Well, I think probably one officer. I mean, I don't know how they're going to deploy that particular officer, but certainly in my area in Sussex, we have a rural crime team of 18 police officers and staff who are dedicated to looking at these types of crime, and dog napping is right at the top of their priority for us in Sussex. We've also put a separate flag on our system so that when a dog is stolen, the police actually tick a box that says a dog was involved in this theft or this robbery, and we actually have a much better way of quantifying how extensive this problem is.
All right, well, thanks very much indeed for coming on to the programme, Katy Bourne, and telling us about the issue today. Thanks.